Welcome people to a new video. Neil here. In this video we are killing two birds with the same stone. We are looking at two different concepts that blend beautiful into each other. The first concept is moving and working in confined and smaller spaces. And the second concept is a concept of finding more connectivity and fluidity in motion, which in return also helps us moving better in confined spaces. Now, what we have did now in the first concept, established a frame in which we can navigate through smaller spaces, and obviously you can use exactly the same approach also in bigger spaces. It could be also nice to work on this using a partner, so you have a random other moving around, so there's a nice challenge for you. But basically we have created a very nice frame in which we can work. From here we can take this concept a whole step further and try to work on more fluidity and connectivity throughout your research. This is something that is a little bit more advanced, and me personally, although I have been practicing using this quite a bit, still sometimes I get caught up and I do not really use it, and I can't really apply it too much. So this is really about putting in the practice and finding very nice ways. Basically, what we want to try right now, instead of moving with our body as a fixed entity, like we just did right now, we were constantly in a state of, let's say, rigidity with our whole body. Instead, we can also continually try to find leading parts of our body. Maybe you know from back in the days the Slinky. It's a nice toy that can walk down stairs. There is also, because the Slinky has two ends, one of the ends always leads the motion, and therefore you have this constant fluid motion without breaks, right? And exactly the same thing we now apply to the human body. And since we do not only have two ends of our body, but multiple ends, and within the ends we also have sub-ends that we can use, there is a lot of possibility to explore. For now, let's limit this research to only the hands and your feet. So, instead of navigating through the space using the frame that we have established in the first concept, now we try to constantly have leading parts that guide us through our little exploration. It could be legs, the rest follows. From here, directly create the next leading part, the next leading part, so forth. And by doing this constantly, changing one leading part with the other leading part, you already create a sensation which is much more fluid than simply walking through the space like this, right? The same thing you can then also apply to the crawling layer. Instead of being in this very fixed position right here, you can now actively search for very nice connections using your hands and your feet to create more circular and connected patterns. Stepping, the rest follows. Leading arms, leading legs, arms, legs, so on and so forth. If you want to, you can apply this concept, maybe that you understand it better, into movements. Number one would be a simple cartwheel, where we would constantly try to switch between leading with the hands going into the cartwheel and leading with the legs going out of the cartwheel. So instead of simply doing a cartwheel like this, where hands and legs are already leading, but we can now focus on it more by reaching with the arm, therefore creating a pull that goes all throughout the body, pulls the legs into the motion, and then when we are at the climax of the motion, we reverse. The legs come down and pull our upper body up. Reaching, pulling. And then we have this very elastic kind of motion, which I dig a lot. Reaching, pulling out of this one. Same thing applies then also to one-arm cartwheels if you would want to do that. Constant pushing into the floor, redirecting with your legs. And then another motion would be a spiraling step, so from the figure 4, pulling with the leg, recovering, pulling with the arm, recovering, pulling with the leg, recovering, pulling with the arm, recovering, so on and so forth, until you can apply this second concept into other movements as well. Now the last thing, and something that is very interesting and then also absolutely relevant for moving into smaller spaces, is redirecting acrobatic movements using the pull of the legs or the arms, but actively using the pull of the legs and arms. So for example, a regular cartwheel would be basically moving in a straight line like this. But we can also curve the cartwheel a little bit, so redirecting the motion a little bit. So if we can use this and if we learn to strategize, we can go into a cartwheel, but redirect nicely and directly find a nice continuation. You can get super creative with the redirections. What I personally like to do, this is an invitation for you to try, is going into the cartwheel, one side, mid-air changing to the other side. So, this is something that you can explore many times for quite a while and find even more interesting connections. And what follows next is a little exploration from my side using the first and the second concepts, switching between different layers, letting arms lead, legs lead, maybe even some head leading, and continually redirecting my motion in a curved fashion, like the pen on the paper. Alright folks, I hope both of them concepts were interesting and valuable to you. As I said before, both of them need a lot of time practicing. I myself also need much more time really figuring them out and integrating them beautifully into my movement, but I find so much freedom by implementing those ideas, so I can actually move in a rather free way in very small spaces. Also very importantly, limitations do have the potential to become super interesting options later on if we allow ourselves to really practice and then also go through the struggle. Obviously, sometimes you will hit walls if you practice in smaller spaces. You will fall off the mats or anything else, and this is simply this is simply part of the whole game. An inspiration for you from a different field could, for example, be Brazilian football players who play in very small spaces, but by playing in them and practicing many times in them, they can then use those very nice and small ideas into their big plays on big soccer fields. So this is also something for you if you're looking for increasing your movement choices and movement freedom in bigger spaces by practicing in smaller spaces. So if you do have any questions, if you want to share anything, please feel free to do so, and see you next time. Enjoy practicing.